You've probably heard the term that a product is in scarce demand or it's in hot demand. When the Beanie Babies came out, or Tickle Me Elmo, those were products that were in demand. Generally, buyers will purchase more of a product as its price drops and less of a product as its price increases. Just think about if you've bought a DVD player, you probably held off for quite a while until the price dropped. You weren't going to spend $600 on one when it was new. Another example may be like flat screen TVs. As the price of flat screen TVs drops, demand will probably increase. This only doesn't hold true if an item is scarce or it has a cult following. This means like if someone has a particular brand of cigar that they like to smoke and it's a very scarce item, it's hard to get, or it's got a cult following like Harley Davidson, people may be willing to pay more for it and keep the demand high. Changes in demand occur if a person's income level changes. For example, if a person is recently laid off from their job, they're going to be less likely to spend money on remodeling, and they probably won't buy a new car. The demand for products can change when tastes change or fashions change, trends change all the time. Right now, one of the things that's very popular is knitting, and sale of knitting needles and yarn has really gone up because it's a popular, trendy thing. Harley Davidson, you might think that the taste for Harley Davidson has always been consistent and they've always had a cult following, but actually it wasn't until World War II vets came home and had to have those macho machines to ride around town. They developed a cult brand by forming Hell's Angels and that bad boy image, and this was sought after by middle America. Other examples of taste changing are, do you remember parachute pants? They didn't last quite so long in the 80s when fashion trends changed. Taste took a turn in the automobile industry when baby boomers really bought up minivans. Generation Xers have made the taste for SUVs very popular, and so SUVs have been a continuing trend. As soon as tastes change and SUVs and minivans aren't popular, then companies will have to adjust. Changes in demand also happen with changes in prices. Would you pay $1,000 for a DVD player today? Probably not. Competition has dropped DVD prices, so all companies who sell them have to lower their own prices in order to maintain their customer base. Changes in demand will also be affected by future prices. I gave you the example of the flat screen TV. If you think that the price of a product will go down in the future, you're going to hold off on buying it. This is true for a lot of high-tech items. When they first come out, they're quite expensive, and the expectation is that sometime in the future the prices will be lower, and that's when you'll buy them. Demand is also affected by the number of buyers. For example, snowboarding has become very popular over the past several years. This in turn means that because there are a lot more snowboarders buying snowboards, there's probably going to be a lot more people buying snowboard jackets. So the number of buyers for snowboard jackets have increased. There are more people using Palm Pilots to organize their lives. Producers will generally offer more of a product for sale as prices rise, and they'll offer less of that product as the price drops. In 1992, the Russian state government eliminated government price controls on most consumer goods. This meant that immediately the prices for bread, milk, and butter rose to more than triple the 1991 prices. Supply was low and demand was high, so businesses could charge a heck of a lot more. Changes in supply will always be affected by things like new technology, the price of resources, the change in prices of related products, the change in the number of producers making those same products, and government taxes. Just think about how new technologies has really affected what kind of products are on the market and how technology affects supply for products. When DVD players came out, you saw fewer and fewer VCRs on the shelves. This really affected the supply of VCRs. Another example that your text offers is how North Face came up with a new laser technology. It became much cheaper for them to produce more jackets at several different price ranges than they were able to in the past. Other examples of new technology impacting supply is Compaq offers tiny projectors, tiny handheld personal computers, laptops. The price of your resources really affects supply because let's say you own a business and your labor costs decrease. You will be able to produce far more goods at a given price. But if your labor costs go up, this also affects how much of a given item you can produce. And also how much you're going to charge for those items. In regards to the change in price of related products, just think about DVD players and the supply when competition really increased. You can probably remember when DVD players first came out, there were just a few producers making all of that were available, and now there are numerous companies that make DVD players or CD players. This really affects the dynamics of supply. The change in the number of producers affects supply because just think about how competition can really affect prices. For example, when you go to buy clothes, you can go to Fred Meyer's or Kmart or Gottschalk's, or you can go to Anchorage, go to the Gap. There's lots of different businesses who make and sell clothes, and so a lot of producers of clothing try and be real competitive and make their clothing available at the cheapest price possible. But there are some businesses who go to the other end of the spectrum and make their products more scarce and expensive. You're probably well aware that there are a lot of fancy designers who, make $5,000 dresses. They're scarce and expensive, and so that's kind of their niche in the market. Taxes can also have a real effect on supply. Just think about when the government raises taxes on an item. It definitely lowers the number of those items produced. How many people, for example, do you know who quit smoking just because it got so expensive because all the taxes that were heaped onto an item? Another concern was several years ago when the luxury tax was discussed. The fear was that if luxury taxes were applied to things like expensive boats, expensive cars, jewelry, furs, that if taxes were applied to those things, then people would be discouraged from buying those items, and it would have a real effect on supply and demand.